Hi everyone, this is Joe from Joe Rocks Coronado, and today we're going to paint this tiger striped mandala using primarily orange, black, and white acrylic paint. So I like to get it on the edges first, that way you don't have any blank spots where the rock slopes underneath. So usually I'll take it and I'll paint the edge of the rock like this. You can put it on pretty thick. This stuff dries really quick too, so. So once I get that done, then it covers all the edges. And then you can lay it down and you can paint the top without worrying about that little piece underneath that might be visible, but it's really hard to reach with the paintbrush. Some people paint their rocks white first, like a base coat. It can affect the color. I'm putting this on real thick, so it should stay pretty good as far as the color goes. Just kind of work it in there, make sure it's getting in all the crevices. This is a fairly smooth, but it has some porous areas on the rock itself, so I'm just putting it in kind of thick, smoothing it out very lightly. Just brush over, try to get some of those lines out. Looks pretty good. Alright, so I just let it dry. As you can see, it's ready to be painted on. I have different circles that I use to make when I need to make shapes, regular shapes on rocks. This is just going to be the bottom where I sign it later, but I'm also going to use it to give myself a guideline for where to paint, where to make the patterns for my mandala design. So again, you can use anything you find that's round. Sometimes I use a lid like this. That one's a little smaller than what I want to do. So I'm going to have this little coin as my center circle, and then I'll use this for my larger circle. And I'm just going to take a black acrylic marker. You don't have to be super neat when you're doing this, because this is pretty much all going to be covered up by the design pattern as we go. Okay, trace around very carefully. And now you have a couple of concentric circles that will help guide your design. This makes a big difference. Sometimes I just freehand it, but when I want a very uniform pattern, then I do this. Now I'm using the clock pattern, which is basically you start at 12 and 6, and then 3 and 9, 1 and, etc., etc. And then you don't have to measure them out, because you can just eyeball it. And it makes it real easy to make this pattern look fairly consistent all the way around. And adding on some petals here, or rays, depending on how you look at this. And I'm doing all my black marker first. And by the time I'm done, I get all these drawn in, then I'll go back over the top of my pattern and use some white. And this is just the early stages, because I'm also going to use some puffy paint on here, which a lot of people ask me about whenever they see my rock designs, because I tend to use a lot of texture, and puffy paint is a way to get that. But just for now, I'm starting out, just getting all the black patterns down. Now I'm going to take out my white. There are many different types of acrylic markers that you can try out. Some are better than others. Main thing with most of them though is just making sure you get them flowing, get the ink flowing so it's not too watery. Make sure you mix it up well. If you haven't used it in a while, make sure you reprime it. It's not hard, but you need to be aware of what you're using because you can ruin a design by having too much paint leak out of that marker at the wrong time. So I'm just going to go back through here and add some details. And I love these bold colors. Literally, I think of a tiger when I see these colors. The orange, the black, and the white. Now, as you look at those last triangles I put in, they're kind of thin on top of the black. And in part, you can blame that on the marker, but I know I'm going to pretty much cover that up anyway with my puffy paint, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to show you a technique I use pretty often in designs actually, where you take a couple different colors, 2-3 colors, and you just make dots with them right next to each other, and then we're going to use a tool to drag through there and make a nice pattern. Okay, so I got a special tool. You can use whatever you want, but in this case I'm just using a very small gauge dotting tool. And I wipe off the excess paint after each drag through because you don't want to spread the lighter colors to the dark center. Unless that's the effect you're looking for. Now I'm going to go back around, I'm going to add another dot in between those dots. And now I'm going to do more of those drags that are going to be pulled inward toward the center to create a nice pattern that will lead the eye right into the center of the mandala. And this part is just a little bit of patience and just being detail oriented, getting your dots lined up. Now I'm going with a little bit of glow in the dark white because I just love when I turn the lights out. I love seeing all those glow-in-the-dark rocks that I have painted over the last several years. Now this is a different type of tool. It's basically it's a sculpting tool really for clay, but it's just got a really narrow metal tip, and you just drag from the big dot through all the dots, and it makes a nice, interesting pattern. If they didn't go far enough, you can just re-drag them again. Now I tap it down just to get that paint to spread out a little bit. Now I'm going to add some accent rays out here on the edge of the mandala. As you can see, I'm making little teardrop shapes, and you do that by starting with a dot at the beginning and then just slowly releasing the pressure as you drag the tip backwards. And if you practice this a little bit, you can get pretty good at it and you can draw pretty consistently. But it's something you got to learn. Definitely something you need to practice a little bit. And if you're not sure how to do it, try it on a piece of cardboard or paper first, just to get see how it feels. Now just add in a little bit of just a little black to accent around the edge there. And that is pretty much my design. It's all dry now, and I'm going to seal it. So I have Krylon Triple Thick, which is my preferred sealer. I'll probably put 2 coats on this, but first coat, just spray it on fairly thin. Let that dry. And I have a fan set up where I can have rocks drying. So I can work on multiple rocks at the same time. And then remember to always sign your rock, because it's nice when you find these rocks out there to be able to give credit to where it's due. Thank you for watching.